Welcome to week 4 as we continue our unit in creative writing about being an observer and being inspired. So, we're continuing to think about really where writers get their ideas. We've talked about the writing process, we've talked about some photographs. Last week, we talked about choosing an object to write about. We're going to continue a little object writing this week, but we're going to add a few different things on there. So we're going to read about diving for the pearls of our own memories and associations as we write about some different objects in more of a free writing situation than in some of the options that you had last week. We will talk about writing in 10-minute chunks so that those free writes are about 10 minutes where we're really focused on that writing. So make sure you are answering the questions that pop up during this video. That's part of what we are working on. I also wanted to mention this to you just as a reminder that we are gathering ideas. All of the writing we've done so far has been pretty much on the spot, kind of journal-like, quick writing. Not anything that we have taken through the entire writing process. We will, though, at the end of the 6 weeks, choose one of these assignments, writing about pictures, writing about your ordinary object, writing about these pearls of objects that you find, and a couple other things that we still have to do. And we will expand one of those into a more fuller piece of developed and revised writing. So we're still looking at just sort of gathering our ideas. This week in your reading, you're going to read a text called Diving for Pearls. It's written by Pat Pattison, someone who certainly has a cool name because it's kind of like the same name twice. He is a singer and songwriter and also a professor at Berkeley in California, and he does classes about writing and where writers get their ideas. And he describes the process of writing about some different random objects and trying to pull things out that you can think of by looking at those objects as diving for pearls. So we have our lovely pearl diver here just to give you that visual. You know, if you were going to dive for a pearl, you would have to go deep into the ocean. We're swimming way, way down at the bottom. We're digging through until you finally find, this wonderful object that is hidden in that shell. So Pat Pattison kind of describes you, the writer, that way, and me. All of us have all of these depths of associations, thoughts, things that we could dive in and pull out just by doing a little free writing about some random objects. You'll read about that in your reading this week, but I also wanted to preview that a little bit for you. Pat Pattison talks about that we have 7 senses, and that we should be describing these objects with all 7 senses. Now, wait a minute. I was always told there were 5 senses. I went to elementary school. We've talked about imagery. I encouraged you last week to write about your ordinary objects with all 5 senses. Those are the 5 senses, right? Sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. But he mentions a couple other senses, really a couple other ideas to keep in mind when you're describing these objects you're going to write about that are going to help you pull out some other pearls. So one of these is what Pattison calls the organic sense. This is kind of interesting. It's an awareness of your inner bodily functions, like your heartbeat. If you're really quiet, you can maybe even hear your heartbeat, especially if you're nervous. Or, if you find your pulse or put your hand on your chest, you can feel your heartbeat. You have an awareness of your heart beating. You have an awareness of your own breathing, if you have any tension or pain in your muscles. Athletes, dancers, people who are constantly using their bodies are very aware of this organic sense because they're always making those adjustments. We maybe only notice it if we've been in the same position too long, or we get tired from doing something, and then we start to feel that pain there. But when you think about these objects, when you think about the memories, associations that they might come out that you're going to write about, you want to not only think about the five senses, but also organically, what innerly body feelings could possibly be prompted by that you could also describe. Little different. It's kind of like the feel sense, but a little different because it's inside. He also talks about kinesthetic sense. And this is your sense of relation to the world around you, especially in regards to balance or movement. If you've ever been seasick, oh, I hate to be seasick. If you're on a boat or car sick, if you don't look out the window enough and you just look, inside the car, you can mess up your inner ear function and then you get queasy, or when things are blurred. So it's your sense of movement relation to the world around you. Think about being dizzy. Or, when children spin, roll down hills, ride on rides, we want to stimulate that sense of where we are. Roller coasters, that's one of the reasons they're so thrilling. It's moving us in a different way. So, as we think about these different objects that I'm going to have you select to write about this week, we want to not only think about what they feel like, sound like, taste like, all those things that could prompt our memories, prompt our thoughts, prompt some stories. We also want to think about organically, as in our inner body senses, how could that be affected? Does a certain memory make us have a pounding heart, short of breath, muscles tense? And kinesthetically, would this make your vision blur? Would it make you dizzy? Would it make you feel like you're moving when you're not moving? All of those different ideas. I also want to introduce you to the rule of 10 minutes. And Pat Pattison is going to talk about this in your reading. But this week's assignment is very much a free write. Last week I said, make it 500 words because I didn't want anyone to just write one sentence like my dog is brown. I wanted you to really write about it. This time, I'm not going to give you a word number, but I'm giving you a time number. I want you to write for 10 minutes. So once you select an object, I want you to put your hands on your Chromebook and we're going to write for 10 minutes. You're going to set a timer. What if I can't think of anything to write? I mean, come on, I don't know what else to say about this object. Then you just type over and over, I don't know what else to write. Sometimes the actual movement of typing that can help you think of something else to say. I don't know what else to write. I think I've said everything I can say about this item. I wish I had something else I could do. What I really wish I was doing would be, and then maybe you're going to prompt something else to come out. So I'm expecting to see a good length because you're writing nonstop, but it is a free write, so you don't have to worry about making it perfect, polished, revised. It doesn't have to have a beginning, middle, and end like last week. It's a free write. It's that a downdraft, very much so, like Anne Lamott talked about. We just want to write, keep writing, and see what we get out of those 10 minutes. So don't let that worry you. Just use that, and you'll see in your reading, Pattison talks about how that is like strength training for a writer to just write more, even if you're writing, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. Gosh, what else could I say? That can keep your brain moving and getting you to the next idea. So this assignment, that's called Random Pearls, we're going with Pattison's pearl metaphor. You're actually going to do 3 free writes this week. They're all in the same Google Doc. They're 10 minutes each, so you don't have to do them all at the same time. In fact, Pattison suggests you do them on different days. They are 3 random objects. If you were here in front of me in the classroom, I would probably pass out some objects, but since we're not, just to try to make it random but a little bit different, I want you to choose one object from each of these categories. So this one is not a special object like before, not, grandma's silk gloves, not something real special to you, but something more random. But one of them should be from your kitchen, something that has to do with food, eating, dishes, a cup, a spoon, a fork, a bottle of ranch dressing, something from the kitchen. And then one of them should be an outdoor object. This could be a lawn chair that's outside, a tree in your backyard, the stop sign on the end of your street, the statue that's you see when you look out the window, or it could be a leaf, a rock, a stick, something like that. So something that has some type of an outdoor identity. And the last one is a piece of clothing. Any piece of clothing. You could get your baby sister's onesie. You could get your favorite sweatshirt that you put on when you're cold. You could get one pair of socks, some piece of clothing. So, since it is more about being random and digging into that randomness to excise all of its interest, you don't have to worry so much about what you choose. You just want to choose one from each of those three categories, and the assignment does mention that. So Mr. Pattison wanted to show you this example of what he did. His outside object was the back porch. So he chose the back porch, and this is what he says was a 10-minute free write. And we're also emphasizing, and you'll read about that in the article and the directions for the assignment, using all those senses. He says, make it sense bound, make it heavy in the senses. So take a look at what he did with me. This gives him a memory. Looking at the back porch gives him a strong memory. I must have been 4. Memories from that time are a rare species, lobbing in like huge bumblebees on transparent wings, buzzing old Remington shavers torn free from those thick and brittle wires, tangled in webs under our porch where I love to crawl and hide. Black snaking wires disappearing up through floors and humming into walls and sockets. I still hear them. So you see how it's not a real orderly description. It's just sort of bouncing from one thing to another. The bumblebees, bumblebees sound like old electric razors. Those razors make me think of the cords, and those cords make me think of all the cords under the porch where I would hide, and all those cords that would go up through the floor. I still hear them. I hid under the back porch. The smell of damp summer earth cool under my hands, ducking, scrunching my shoulders tight to avoid the rusty nails, waiting patiently above for my back or skull to forget them. So here I see a little bit of that organic sense. We have touch, the earth is cool, but also scrunching of the shoulders. It's a feeling kind of inside the body. Here's another one. The tingling along my back and neck kept reminding me, don't stand up. Under the back porch, a place tinged with danger and smelling of earth, the air tastes faintly of mold and hollyhocks twining around the trellises that I see only the bottoms of, speckled gold by the shafts of light slipping through high elm branches in the backyard, weaving shadows like Grandma's lace dresser doilies. Now, that's a really long sentence, but he's not worried so much about making perfect, English class-esque awesome sentences. It's just letting all that description out. When I squint, I can blur the sunlight into a bridge of green gold, crouching there, fetal and content. I could feel Mom above me, could hear her high heels tap-tapping. And he's using that word fetal there to describe like being curled up in the fetal position like a baby, very happy and content under the back porch. And like I kind of pointed out as we were reading, there's a lot of sensory information there. There's a lot of sight, but we also have hearing, the sounds, we have the smells of things. We have taste, we have touch, we have those organic feelings and those kinesthetic feelings as well. So you're going to play around with this idea this week. Each of these items is an assignment on Google Classroom. You want to watch them or do them in order. You've watched this video. Great job. Answer those embedded questions. You want to read Diving for Pearls, the full text that I've been referring to. And just like we've been doing, You're going to scroll all the way down when you've read that whole article. It's just a couple pages like our others have been. You're going to find the link for the Padlet. You're going to see some questions to respond to. Remember, we're going to choose one question for you to respond to, any of the 4 questions you like. We're going to put your response on the Padlet. And please respond to 2 of your classmates on the Padlet. Also, I sent some of you a private comment. Make sure the Padlet says your name. Okay, make sure it says your name. If it says like, Lonesome Unicorn, I don't know who that is. And I'm giving you credit for your wonderful responses on the Padlet. So make sure they don't have the names of animals or something else. We want it to not have a nickname, but have your actual name. Also, you want to complete that random pearls assignment that we were discussing. You're going to choose, a kitchen object, an outdoor object, a piece of clothing, and you're going to do those 10-minute sections for each one of those. This Thursday, we also have our live workshop meet. If you would like to attend, you may. It's optional. That's a chance for you to ask questions about the assignment. You can get some help from me if something's not quite clear. It's a chance for you to share your work with other students and see what they think. It's also a chance just to talk a little bit more about this week's focus. So feel free to do that if you like. As always, feel free to email me with any questions. I hope you have a wonderful week of diving into the depths of your own psyche and descriptive abilities. Have a great week, everybody. I look forward to reading your work this week.